people. It's been quite the day for politics at a national level. This evening, we're not going to focus so much on Downing Street, hopefully, but rather on the first tier of local government, town and parish councils. And we're going to explore how and to what extent it's possible to deliver progressive and, dare I say, a cooperative agenda. Unlike in Downing Street, here is complete transparency. From me, at least, after 4 years as a councillor in London, we moved up to Derbyshire. Yeah. And I would genuinely love to be a parish councillor. So much so I've stood twice, in last time in 2009, and received just 69 votes, which at the time was about the same number of Labour Party members in our little village. So on this subject, possibly the less you hear from me, the better. However, the good news is we've got a wonderful panel who do know what they're talking about and have got vast and really interesting experiences. First up, we've got Councillor Chris MS Williams, leader of Codnor Parish Council in Derbyshire. Then we'll hear from Councillor Sue Woodward, leader of Burntwood Parish Council in the West Midlands. We want a special thanks to her from all of you, because it is actually her birthday and she's joining us on her birthday. So, you know, beyond the call of duty in every respect. And last but by no means least, we've got Councillor Dave Griffiths from South Swindon Parish Council. Now, Swindon has a really interesting and possibly unique setup. So please do stay on the call from him. Quick word about the format. The speakers will have 5 to 7 minutes each. We'll have plenty of time for questions afterwards. Just to reiterate again, please keep yourself on mute if you're not asking a question. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you very much, James. So good evening, everybody. I'm Chris MS Williams. I'm leader of Codnor Parish Council. I also sit on a town council as well. And up until last May, I was leader of Amber Valley Borough Council. A bit of background to myself. My parents were in politics and members of the Co-op Party for many, many years. And I suppose that's where my grounding came from. So I became a member of the Co-op Party first, and then when I moved from living with my parents, I moved to Codnor. And virtually not long after we moved to Codnor, after I got married, the Boundary Commission in 1979 were asked to look at setting up of the parish councils. They established the first ones in 1982, and the first elections we had in Codnor was in 1984. And we're slightly probably different from other places, I don't know, but our area is split up of 9 in the main ward, 9 seats in the main ward, and 3 in what we call the Cross Hill and East ward. And looking back across the history, that we're a bit concerned about the Cross Hill and East ward because they always seem to return 3 Tory councillors. So for us to take control, we needed to take at least 7 of the other 9. So I say the first election was in 1984, and it returned 7 Tories and 5 Labour. And the first election just lasted for 3 years. And then in 1987, the next election, we finished up with 10 Tories and 2 Labour. And during that period, one of my colleagues died. So it was 11 Tories and myself, because they co-opted a Tory on. In 1991, when the next election, the split was then 6 Tory and 6 Labour. In 1994, one of their members died. They tried to call an election, messed that up. So obviously we had 6 and they had 5, so we were able to co-opt a Labour member on. And then that's when we really started to turn the parish council around. So much so that when we had the next election in 1995, we retained all 12 Labour seats, including the 3 in the larger Tory area. And since then, we've only actually had 1 election, and that was in the Cross Hill in East Ward. A Tory stood, and he actually got on, so we're 11 and 1 Tory. He resigned after 9 months because, from what I've seen, that's what a lot of Tories do. So as I mentioned earlier, we did start to make a big change in 1994. We introduced Christmas lights into the village. We just had a Christmas tree and no lights in the village at all. So we went out, we got a contractor, and we got some Christmas lights up. But also, in partnership with the Borough Council, we introduced a community bonfire and fireworks display. The Borough Council then pulled out about 10 years ago, but we've continued to pay for that. It's a free entry event, and we now get over 3,000 people attending, not just from Codnor, but right across a lot of Derbyshire come to it, because we've always tried to keep it a free event. The next major thing that we did, we had a problem with some overgrown allotments. And we talked to a developer, and we came to an agreement where we could sell these allotments. Obviously, we had to get permission from the Secretary of State. That was given, and they moved ahead to build a care home on that piece of land. With the money that the Parish Council got, it paid for the siting of a mining wheel, because we're an ex-mining village, and we got no recognition of that. So we managed to get a mining wheel, and we sited that in a prominent part of the village. That cost us £35,000 in 2010. And then in 2013, another large sum of 150,000, we invested in a community and sports centre. The football, cricket and bowls teams were actually getting changed in a porta cabin with no running water or toilets or anything like that. So the FA was looking to put some changing rooms, but we wanted a community room as well. So we put about a third of the funding in, and that opened in 2008. No, tell a lie, 2013, apologies. Right, what we've also done, the Tories wanted to bring car parking charges into our 2 village car parks. So we said that we'd take them over. We have to pay the NNDR for them and also the water rates. But it's not just the people that's coming to visit the shops, but also the people that work in our shops. We've got 4 hairdressers in the village, and obviously they tend to have lower paid people that work there. And if they had to pay for car parking, that would take a considerable amount of their money. So obviously we want to keep visitors coming and being able to park, but also want to look after the people who have to work in our shops. I think it's fair to say that no doubt anybody that's been on district council will have seen that their funding has been decimated by the government's austerity policy over many years. And on that basis, what we've done as a parish council, we've always increased our parish precept. And I've looked back recently, and in 2003, the amount of fund that we got per household in Codnor was £23.43 a year. This last financial year, it would have gone up to £66.46. But when you look at it, that's £1.28 a week for each household in our area. So to me, when you look at it from that point of view, I think we do a really good job on the amount of money that we get. The other thing that we've recently done, we became a council of competency, which gives us more scope to spend our money on the projects we want to support. So basically, that's the background to where we came from and where we are now. I say we are a small parish council. We've got 2 staff. We have a clerk and also what we call a parish warden, who basically collects the litter and tidies the place up, but also helps us when we do a road closure for the carol service in the village and the bonfire and firework display. In the past, we've also done a joint black spot lighting scheme with the authority. We've had some footpaths which have got no lighting on. Say jointly we funded lighting for those. We also took on some bus shelters. We are now looking, well, we've also taken into account a play area, which we now look after. And currently we're looking at providing electric vehicle charging points in our car parks. We've also taken over a green open space, which came available, and we've received an amount of money from the developer for us to look after that for the next 20, 30 years. So that's about it from me. I don't know if there's, I don't know how long that's been, if that's enough, James, but I'm obviously open for any questions from anybody.
Chris, that's brilliant. Thank you. That's I've got it 30 seconds over time, which I'll take that. We'll do questions at the end if that's okay.
Fine, no problem.
Great. So Sue, tell us about Burntwood.
Right, well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for those birthday wishes. I shall be having a small party afterwards, cheese and nibbles. I'm going to confess that now, but I'll have a drink or two as well. I'm the leader of Burntwood Town Council, which is a large urban parish in South Staffordshire. And parish councils, like all of our parish councils, are both literally and metaphorically closer to the communities that we serve. But we're seen as the sort of Cinderella local authority. However, it depends on the membership, you know, and we can bring new and creative solutions in terms of engagement with electors and the use of local government resources. And Chris was talking about the pressures on district and county or top tier council finances. We're not capped, that's a challenge in itself, but there are things that we can do to make life better. I decided some time ago, I'd been a district councillor and I was until Mayor County Councillor, and it's very difficult from an opposition perspective to get a great deal of traction and change your councils. I certainly wasn't able to change the world. I wasn't able to change the UK, but I thought I can make some changes in my town. So when I became leader in May 2019, my particular pitch was based on cooperative principles. So I wanted the council to be an effective community voice, an outward-looking council that focuses on our town and not itself, which had been the previous experience. You know, it was about chains for the consort and that sort of thing. I wanted a council that's ambitious for our town, a council that's an enabling council, that engages with residents and community groups and facilitates activities within the town, and also a consensual council that recognises different opinions and develops a positive tone and culture, because the previous 4 years had been a really toxic, highly politicised council that was doing no one any good. Now, there's a great pride in my town, and like Chris's town, you know, mine's a former mining community, or in fact 4 former mining villages that were brought together in those 1970s local government reorganisations. So there's a great pride in that mining history. There's also a pride in the sort of landscape around. We're just on the edge of the Cannock Chase area of outstanding natural beauty. And it's always had a strong sense of community, but it hadn't been harnessed adequately. However, to read social media on Burntwood, you'd think we were living in some sort of horror movie, zombie apocalypse or something. And at a time when satisfaction with politicians and councils are pretty low, engagement has always been fairly limited, and cynicism is high. There's also the fact, and I'm glad, James, you described us as the first tier of local government. We're often seen as the bottom tier of local government. There's also a lack of understanding in the public, especially when you've got 3 tiers, parish, district and county, who's responsible for what. So it was interesting when Storm Arwen struck, Burntwood Town Council was being blamed for the lack of road gritting, but you know, you have to bite your tongue sometimes and just explain through gritted teeth. My concern was that the town council, in lots of ways, although it spends a chunk of public money, was pretty much irrelevant to the town's residents. We commented on planning applications. We occasionally responded to consultations. We provided some services. We've got a cemetery, and we looked after bush shelters and some street lights and so on, and organised endless events. But the events that were being organised, which was taking up a huge chunk of our budget, showed no real community engagement. They were parachuted onto the community with any sense of developing that sort of community engagement and community activity, and making a real and sustainable difference to people's lives. So they failed to, if you like, to bring this added social capital. And that's what I'm really interested in developing, the idea of, you know, the social capital and the added value we can bring to our town. So we started off in a project, a whole range of different themes in this project called Better Burntwood. However, as you know, parish councils are limited in what they can do. We've got a budget of around 350,000 a year. We've got a core staff of 1 full-time member of staff and 3 part-time members of staff. So our resources are very limited. But by working cooperatively with community groups, with businesses, with other councils, with other public agencies such as the police and individual residents, we know we can make a difference. And we've started on that, and we've started well. Then COVID hit. And in many ways, it was the worst of times and the best of times, because what was proved through COVID, although it was horrendous in many ways on our communities as on yours, we as a town council acted as an umbrella organisation to bring together a group called Burntwood Be a Friend that involved local churches, a parent-led children's centre, local businesses, and we were able to immediately set up, through grant aid and so on, support for this organisation, this nascent organisation, which has gone on to develop even further and has recently been given a lottery grant to open a community store, which is fantastic. I was acting as the leader of the council. I was acting as the sort of link with the district council's collaborative meetings with volunteers and you know, third sector representatives, and passing on lots of information to the people who were actively running Be a Friend, opportunities for grants and so on, and information about what the district and the county council were doing. And it absolutely proved we've got a strong community spirit that we can continue to build on. Now we're in recovery, we're starting to readjust and look forward. So, you know, I've always felt that as a parish council, whatever our political colour, we've got to work constructively and cooperatively with our district and county councils, both of which are opposite colour to mine, but there you go. We've set up a town deal partnership, and we've got an agreed set of priorities that we all want to make sure that we're pulling in the same direction on. But also it's in our own control. We've taken our council meetings out and about around the town rather than being in our town council offices. So we're using community venues. That gives them a little bit of resource. It encourages their members to join in and gives us a chance to engage with them, with, you know, the churches, the uniformed organisations, children's groups, older people's groups, and so on. And we've also increased the opportunities for the public to participate by opening up a public forum session, which I suspect many of you are doing too. We're building great relationships with all of our community organisations, large and small, and those who work hard for the town, they've got the creative and dynamic ideas that they can come to us and say, how can we take this forward? And our networks mean that we can facilitate that. And we've redesigned the way we do grant aid. We no longer just throw a few quid at these organisations every year. We're actually collectively setting priorities. So priorities at the moment for us are around loneliness for older people and people with mental health problems. They're around income maximisation rather than just simply debt advice. They're around ensuring that families have got enough food to put on their tables in the evening. So we're starting to commission services and offering 3 years worth of funding to organisations who say, yes, we can deal with social isolation by putting on lunch clubs at our pub, for example. We've set up a planning advisory group. We went down from 11 committees in the previous council to 3 to try and make it more transparent. But we've also set up a planning advisory group because often they're the most contentious issues that parish councils deal with. And we've had community representatives now on that committee giving us their ideas. for example, on how to spend community infrastructure levy funding. Working collaboratively with the district council, they gave us funding for a series of pilot markets, you know, when we're not well served in terms of the retail offer. And so we set up market pilots earlier this year, and they were hugely successful, and we want to continue those next year. We're working proactively with businesses to try and set up a Burntwood Business Improvement District, a BID. And, you know, in terms of our relationships with businesses, they're starting to flourish. We've partnered with one local business, a large local business, but it's an international company, Mercy and Labels, to develop a community woodland. They're paying for it, but we knew the people who they needed to talk to. And so we've assisted in facilitating the work they're doing, and planting starts in early January. I think one of the things is just giving people and members the permission to be creative about solutions. Okay, litter problem. We've got a fantastic group that's sprung up called Burntwood Litter Heroes, and we've been able to support them by buying litter pickers and so on, and sharing all the social media. And we're asking members to think creatively, so that when the district council finally does decide, it's been on the cards for a long time, to close our public toilets, we are making provision to ensure that, you know, in a civilised town like Burntwood, there is adequate toilet provision. We've commissioned our fantastic Burntwood Lions group to assess and hand out what could be called hardship grants. We don't call it that, though. We don't want that to be stigmatised, but they had experience themselves in offering grants for white goods and carpets for people arriving in the town without any resources, for example, people fleeing domestic violence. And now we're commissioning them in £5,000 tranches to do that work for us. And when new people come into the town and are immediately supported by the town, that starts to develop that social capital there. It's a district council responsibility, I know, but we're working with them and with friends of groups to improve our parks. We've got the events that used to just be plonked onto the community now being organised by businesses, including one recently where I was asked to switch on the Christmas lights, which was organised by our wonderful co-op member Pioneer. So there's a very constructive relationship with our co-op stores in the town. And we're also,
Sue, if I can ask you just to wind up, if that's okay.
Yeah. There are risks to these approaches. And one of them came up last week where on social media, someone said Burntwood Town Council does nothing. They get volunteers to do it. But we're there in the background facilitating. And I do believe we're creating a better Burntwood. I'm sorry, James, I've run over. You can see that I'm really excited about the potential in our town, but hope I haven't bored you too much. Thanks very much.
Not at all. The passion has come through. I'm sure everyone else will agree, and I'm sure you'll be able to come back to some of these with questions. Dave, tell us about Swindon. Beg your pardon, Dave. You need to unmute.
Sorry, James. Thank you for the invite. South Swindon Parish Council is going to be totally different from what you've heard from Sue and Christopher. As a parish council, we were only founded in 2017, basically on the basis that the Conservative Borough Council wanted to increase the council tax and use it as a way of trying to increase that. 2017 to 2019 was shadow years, and 2019 was the first actual parish council elections. The parish council is made up of 23 councillors, 3 of which are Conservative, 1 Liberal Democrat. The rest of us, the other 19, are all Labour and Co-op, or Labour and Co-op councillors. The 19 Labour and Co-op councillors meet as an informal group, of which I chair. As a parish, we are the 6th largest parish council in the country and have a spend of probably nearly £3 million a year. We employ 40 members of staff because Swindon Borough Council decided that they wanted to put Street Smart out to the parishes. With the parish the size of ours, we decided to take it on and to take on the direct employment of the staff. So we didn't put it out to another company. We are very proactive in the community. We run things like Britain in Bloom, competently Britain in Bloom, of which the first year we entered, we got the best Southwest garden, Victorian garden in the Southwest region. We got 3 major parks in the parish. One is a 126-year-old garden, which is Victorian garden, which is called Town Gardens. And we actually restored the gates on that, which cost us about £7,000. So they're back to look good for another 125 years. We got the Town Gardens, and we've also got what we call GWR Park, which is Great Western Railways Park. Obviously, Swindon being the home of the railways, one of the railway homes is in Bard Kingdom, Brunel. I chair the Youth Services Working Party, and I had to develop the strategy for that, being a brand new parish. So nicely hidden within all that is Labour values and principles. So they are nicely hidden away so that ordinary people don't actually realise what they're actually signing up to when they look at it. Currently employ 1.5 youth workers. I say half. He's on a 6-hour contract a week. And we do have face-to-face youth work. We're the only parish in Swindon that's actually doing that. Swindon is actually, believe it or not, made up of 20 different parishes. A lot of them are the old style parishes. Most of them are Tory controlled, apart from South Swindon. And there's the smaller parish, which is North Swindon. Both are Labour controlled. Apart from that, we're very, as I said, we're very proactive, doing lots of things. We also run a grants working party. So anyone wants a grant for something, they can make an application to us. It goes through. We have a planning committee that meets once a month and feeds back into the district council about views and policies. And as parish councillors, obviously, we take up cases and feed them back into the borough council. We're quite lucky in some ways that it's only the parish and the borough. We don't have any county influx going on there. Probably it's quite fair to say that the Tories on the district council are quite envious of what we've actually managed to do on the parish, being very proactive. We've taken a lot of new developments forward, and things that they wanted to do but probably hadn't got the knowledge or the way to do it. I probably think that's probably about enough on South Swindon, James, and I'll hand it back to you for questions.
Thank you so much. Crikey, social capital, zombies, and am I right in saying you had 40 members of staff?
That's right.
That's quite something, isn't it? Right, open questions. What I'm going to ask people to do is either electronically through the reactions button or physically, if you're on camera, put your hands up. And I'll take questions in groups of 2 or 3, if that's okay. If the reactions button looks like raise hand like that, if you've not done it before. I can see that we've got one already with Kate and Duncan to follow. So Kate, please unmute yourself and ask a question.
Yeah. Hello, I'm Kate. I'm a parish councillor in a small, well, fairly small village, about 2,500 people. But we are, I've been parish councillor for about 12 years. We, well, fortunately or unfortunate, depends what side you're on. We're in the strategic site in the local plan, the district council. So we're going to be doubled in size. They're building 1,300 houses on one side of our village, and we've got the challenge to keep it as one village. which is very hard. But luckily, we did do a neighbourhood plan early on, and so that's been very helpful all the way along. Without that, we would be really struggling, I think. Anyway, that was a little introduction. Just wanted to ask Christopher, because we have an allotment issue, and you said that you sold off your allotments, and I went, what? And our issue with allotments is that they're owned by the parish. They're next door to our aviation museum. You may know of Tangmere as one of the airfields in the Battle of Britain. So that's our big historical bit. And so we have this museum, and they need more space because airplanes are very large things. Even wartime airplanes take up a lot of space. So with this new development, we've offered to swap where our current allotments are and put new allotments on the new development. And the developers have agreed to put them in for us, and there'll be enough allotments for the new 1,300 houses and enough for what we have now as well. But of course, quite a lot of people are not happy about this move, and we have to get permission from the Secretary of State and everything, but I think it will go through. But I was just very interested to hear how how they were just able to sell off their allotments. Was it a time when allotments were not popular? Because at the moment we have a waiting list, and if we were to talk about selling them, we'd be drummed out of town.
Okay, thank you, Kate. What I'll do, we'll get a question from Duncan as well, and then we'll come back to the panel if that's all right, Chris. So hold your thoughts on that, and let's hear a question from Duncan, please.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, especially from what Sue Woodward had to say about BIDS, the Business Improvement District, but it may be of relevance to Christopher and Dave as well. I'm just very interested in how BIDS can be a useful thing as far as creating diversity and also local focus on problems. There's a tendency to look upon BIDS as being a kind of right-wing thing because it was a Conservative or at least a coalition government that introduced them. And I'm glad to hear that Sue's cooperating with them. I'd love to hear more.
Great, over to the panel. I reckon let's go Sue, Chris and Dave, if you've got anything to fill in for those two questions, please.
Yeah, Duncan, for a long time, we've tried to engage with businesses. We've got several big industrial estates just on the edge of town, and it's been impossible. So people were coming into the town during the day, possibly occasionally using some of the local shops and then going out in the evening with no real sort of connection with the town. And the movement towards a bid, which has been led by my deputy, who's a businessman himself, has meant that that's given us a platform to engage with businesses. And I don't doubt that our community woodland with Mercy and Labels, for example, wouldn't have happened unless that process had happened. So whether we become a bid ultimately or not, there are positive steps along the way, and we've got businesses now who are paying for Christmas events to happen. We've got businesses who just AutoSmart is moving from about 5 miles away into Burntwood, and they want to connect with the community, and they've got resources and staff that they want to connect with us. So ultimately, whether we get towards a bid or not, which of course comprises of a referendum and an increase on the business rates that they pay, there's that percentage that happens. Whether we actually get to that or not, but I think the process is proving very valuable. Just on allotments, we've not got any allotments, but of course it's one of the statutory obligations for parish councils to provide allotments. So we're struggling with this at the moment about how we get land. We're in negotiations again, constructively with the district council to provide some land where we can provide allotments. We certainly haven't got any capital tied up at the moment in allotments. Thanks.
Chris, please unmute yourself.
Yep, okay. Right. First of all, our precept is £76,000 this year, nothing like everybody else. Anyway, that's another thing. Just regarding the allotments, what happened? The allotments that I'm talking about were at the top of a cul-de-sac with no turning head. We spoke to a developer who was going to develop part of it to create 8 affordable houses, well, units, but also as part of that deal, but it wasn't actually written into the deal, they would sort out some overgrown and very rundown allotments. They didn't complete that. There was a few issues regarding the funding for it, and we were left with 2 areas that were, say, very overgrown, undulating. There was people going on, children going on in bikes and those sort of things. We were very worried in case somebody got injured. So we applied to Secretary of State to see if we could sell those off for a care home. But as part of that deal, we would put a proper fencing in for the allotments, which they hadn't got. They've not got a fence for the allotments that stop people getting in. So that's part of the deal. So, and I'm going back probably 15, 18 years now when we actually did that. So it wasn't something that we really wanted to do, but it was the easiest and the best way out of it for us as a parish council to do that. Since then, obviously, more and more people have wanted allotments. We have still got a few that's vacant as well. So at the time, we felt it was the right decision.
Great, thank you. Dave, how do you manage allotments? I'm also intrigued to have read a few years ago that Swindon, as a kind of a big railway town, you got a covenant saying you can't keep pigs and that kind of thing in your back gardens, apparently. But how do you manage allotments?
Well, James, I don't know about keeping pigs in the back gardens, but certainly in the railway, what we call the railway village, which is where Isambard Kingdom Brunel built all the houses for the GWR factory, they probably wouldn't have enough space to keep a pig. But allotments, yes, we've got probably in the South Swindon, we've probably got about 20 allotment sites. All of them are fully filled. The only problem we got is where they're building new houses round the parish, is that these are going over to management companies, and certainly there is some allotment sites being created on those areas that are not going to be managed by the parish council, are going to be managed by these management companies. So that's something that we're actually in the throes of trying to sort out. With regards to bids, Duncan, the bid we've actually got here in Swindon, which is actually Swindon Town Centre, which is a Brunel Centre. One of my Tory colleagues on the parish council, who actually runs a business in the bid, reckons that it's actually going to fold next year, which is going to be rather interesting, because it means that that area of the town will then have to go back to being administered by Swindon Borough Council. And Swindon Borough Council don't have the money to administer that area. So they're probably going to be looking to pass that on to us on the parish, of which we will probably be very reluctant to pick up without any backup of funds to sort of administer that area. So it's going to be interesting to see how the bid will go ahead here in Swindon going forward, because a lot of the shops in the Brunel are literally closing, and all the residents are saying that Swindon is a dying town in the town centre, because we've got so many shopping centres around the outside.
Well, thank you for that. Thomas, Tom Maddison I'm going to bring in, and if there are no questions after that, I'm going to I'm threatening to bring in my colleague, Stephen, who's got an exciting announcement he wants to tell you all about. But Tom, fire away.
Thanks, James. I'm Tom Maddison. I'm a district councillor at Dartford in Kent, sort of right on the London boundary there we are, you know, and I'm a councillor for an area which was built straight after the war, you know, all the bomb damage and new housing we needed. The main road through the estate is called Attlee Drive. It's a community in its own right. And in recent years, I've been the district councillor there for 16 years now, but people are coming up to me and saying things like the Cllr money and that are coming into the borough. The parishes all get 15%. We've got 8 parishes around Dartford. And they're saying, what would be the benefits to us, Tom, to be a parish council in our own right? And I said, well, it's got its good points. I was a parish council as well for an area called Wilmington in Dartford, and a Kent County council at one time as well. But Dave, I was wondering, you're the one that sort of set up a parish council in just very recently, and I wondered whether, you know, was it an arduous process, or is it something that you think would fit in? You know, we're right bordering on the town centre. Actually, was a huge council estate. Many of the houses have gone under right to buy, of course, but we still hold about 4,000 properties there, the council, that they retained. You know, but what would be your suggestion as to me to get things, the way to get things moving?
What a fantastic question. I'm going to go direct to Dave and then ask Sue and Chris whether they've got anything to add to that question. But Dave, how did you go about it?
Well, it's nice to speak to you again, Tom, because many years ago we used to be on the Southwest Regional Co-op Group area committees. Yeah. Nice to speak to you again.
You still ought to be.
Yeah, you'll probably it probably would benefit you, Tom, to actually become a parish council, because although we're classed as a parish council, our boundaries are virtually the whole of South Swindon parliamentary constituency, except for West Swindon. So that just shows you the size of area that we deal with. And certainly talking to our finance officer, there's one area of South Swindon, which is in a place called East Witchell, which is going out of Swindon a little bit, where Bovis are building homes. There's an area they can't build on because of the state of the land, because the River Ray also flows through there. So that's going to be turned into a green area, and that has got potentially of Cllr money coming to the parish of about £2 million over about 10 years. So you can just imagine what the parish can do with £2 million over 10 years. So yeah, any chance of getting the chance to bring in Labour policies and co-op policies at the lowest, what they say the lowest or the first tier of local government, go for it, especially with things like youth work, and even perhaps if you've got a large Asian population there that's elderly, that don't speak English as a first language, or they need chance to brush up on their English classes, perhaps working with the youth service. So the children are at youth club, and the parents are brushing up on their English, or brushing up on maths or English or something like that. Really start bringing the community together and doing things.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dave. Thank you.
Now, I'm going to bring Kate in towards the end, but I've got a question in the chat from Carol, which I'm going to address to Sue, because I think you're going to be spot on this. So the first one is, have you got anything to add about how you set up a parish council? If you don't, there's a question from Carol saying, could you just very quickly run through the difference between city councillors, parish councillors, district councillors, and the different tiers? I think we all rather assumed that all of us are in the know.
Yeah, and I haven't got a clear answer for you. I think probably on Wikipedia it might tell you exactly how, but I think that, you know, I said we were a large urban parish council, and I think that's probably the original designation that when the Boundary Commission set us up, where we were called a town council. Just next door to us is Lichfield City Council, which is also their parish council, to add to the confusion. And I think it's because historically Lichfield is a cathedral city. Or Chris is nodding, shaking his head, he might know the details more. But again, that's a parish council, but that was the designation when it was set up as a parish council. So, you know, it is very confusing. So no wonder residents get confused between district, county, and parishes when they've also got cities and towns. So sorry, Carol, I can't enlighten you a great deal, but I shall go away and find out, I think.
Chris, do you want to add anything there?
Yeah, I must admit, as people are obviously begin to realise, it is a confusing situation. See, I thought that city councils were more unitary authorities, and town and parish council were basically set up in the late 70s stroke early 80s. And I've been quite amazed at the size of some of the town and parish councils that we've been talking about tonight. I say, I just thought that the ones around here came out of the urban district councils, when we had 4 urban district councils, and they were changed into town and parish councils. And I thought that's what had happened in all areas. Obviously, it would appear that different areas have got different ways of those town and parish councils being set up.
Yeah, you know what? I got a feeling I kind of know the answer, but I'll answer that to Carol separately. But Kate, if you can come in with a question or a point, please.
Yeah, well, my question's related really to that question, in that I'm interested in hearing that you're talking about we've got 6 Labour members or 5 Tory members and all that sort of thing. Now, I've been a parish council for 12 years, and we have to stand on a non-political ticket, and so we all stand as independent. What's the difference? Why can't we stand? Why can't I stand as a Labour co-op parish councillor?
Yeah, I mean, shall I try and wrap up what I think I know about all of this? So, in effect, there's no real difference between a town and a parish councillor other than what you call yourselves. And a parish council can determine that it wants to be called a town council. In terms of the different powers, no change whatsoever. The significant change in power arises if your council has adopted the general power of competence under the 2012 Localism Act, which means you can do an awful lot more than your statutory minimum. There is traditionally town and parish councils wouldn't be operating in urban areas. That was relaxed a little bit under, again, the kind of Conservatives. Most notably, I think Swindon is kind of the most significant example. The bigger and more significant difference is where you've got unitary authorities and you've got a single tier of government. Outside the unitary and metropolitan areas, more typically, you will definitely have a district and a borough, district or a borough council, and above that a county council. You may or may not have a parish council or a town council. And to answer your question, Kate, I don't think there's anything stopping you standing as a Labour or a Labour and cooperative parish councillor other than your local party and ways and traditions. Lots of places, it's just the tradition that you stand as independent rather than, and there's a resistance against that sometimes from politicising councils.
My local parties would be quite happy for me to stand, but as on their ticket, but the actual parish council don't want people to stand on a political ticket.
You know what, Kate? I'm going to put my email in the chat, and we can pick that up later. Now, Jeanette, over to you for what I think will be a last question, And then very finally, I'm going to bring in Stephen, my colleague. Oh, hello, I recognise the face. You will need to unmute yourself, Jeanette.
I think I've done it now. A town council can appoint a mayor if it wishes, whereas a parish council conducts its business through a chair. So I hadn't realised that difference, but that's, you know, a little snippet of information I've just found out. Hope it helps.
Fantastic. Right, Stephen Barry Stanners, can you jump in? Because I know you're itching to tell us about something.
Well, I must say you've hyped this up as big news. I hope I can deliver on that promise. We'll see. Tonight has been such a fantastic discussion, in my opinion, and I've loved hearing all the different contributions. Until recently, until May, I was myself a parish councillor in Seaton Valley. And I was chair of that council, so it's great to see some of the work happening elsewhere in the country. The big news, which isn't actually that big, is we've got a WhatsApp group dedicated to Labour and Co-operative Parish councillors, where you can sort of chat, share ideas, best practice, etc., etc. So. If you are a Labour and Co-op parish councillor, or if you're just a parish councillor and you're a co-op member, it doesn't matter if you've stood on a Labour co-op ticket. And you want to be added to that.
Council support have been calling for even before.
Oh, I thought that was me there. Yeah, if you do want to be added to that WhatsApp group, if you could either send a message in the chat, or James has just popped his email address in the chat there. If you could email us and let us know, we can send you the link to join that. So yeah, I hope I hope that big news has got everyone excited. And if I can just mention one other thing which hasn't sort of been mentioned. I've put a couple of links in the chat which have some very useful resources on some of the topics that we've discussed tonight. For NALC, which is the Association of Local Councils. There's information on there about setting up a parish or town council in your area. I've also put in details from the Electoral Commission on standing as a political candidate. You absolutely can stand as a Labour co-op candidate in the election. Just a lot of town clerks and councils have a long-standing tradition of not being political, but there is nothing stopping you from doing that. They can't prevent that. So yeah, do get in touch if there's any other questions, and I'll pass back over to James.
Thank you. I'm just adding a very late addition who's come into the group, and I'm sorry for the late arrival. You've missed what I think was a great discussion, and really three very diverse councils from different bits of the country, and some great questions. And I want to thank Chris, I want to thank Dave, and I want to thank Sue in particular, given it's her birthday. She should be out having wine and cheese in parties all over, you know, doing all that kind of stuff. But she's made that decision to give us treat us to what Burntwood is up to. And with that, I'd like to thank everyone else for attending. I think it's been a really fun discussion. And Jenny Swift, I apologise that you've missed what was a fun decision, a fun Zoom. We will probably put this up on YouTube in the near future. If for those of you who want to go back and revisit aspects of that. If not, thank you for your time, and I'll close the meeting. Cheers.